Welcome back to another episode of Picking Up the Pixels RPG Love. I'm your host, Boston. Joining me as always is Musim.
Hello.
I'm a little under the weather today, so apologies in advance if a little quieter than normal. I got the humidifier over here blowing right in my face, so hopefully that'll be doing some good stuff. Anywho, Musim, what have you been playing this past month?
Well, starting off, I beat Symphony of War.
Oh, right.
It was about 40 hours.
Okay.
I wholeheartedly love that game. Like, there's not a save game plus, and I had to fight the impulse to immediately just start it over to do it all again.
Right.
Like, it says there's a lot of, like, replay value, and I guess in terms of, like, which characters hook up with whom, like, there probably is.
Mm.
But the... Gosh, like the crown jewel of the game is the gameplay, right? And rearranging and managing your army. It just is. It's very, very ogre battle with some Fire Emblem touches.
Mm.
I think it's like a $20 game or $25 game. Like I cannot recommend it enough if you like turn-based games and tactics games. The story was like overall, I really liked the story. I think like the story versus the quality of writing, I think may have been the issue. Like
Oh,
something is
okay.
off about the writing in this game. Like they did some like story items that I wasn't super comfortable with. Like there's this paladin order of females who are supposed to have a kid and then they join the order and I it never came across as gross and disgusting, but it still kind of like
A
made me
little
nervous.
icky. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've like seen and read enough fantasy stuff where you're like, oh, when is this going to take the turn? Like, when
Yeah.
is this going to be real gross about something?
Yeah. And I guess it doesn't, like, other than requiring the paladins to have a kid before they do the order, but even then it's not like all the paladins like their kids and they just
Mm.
talked about their old mates as like almost indifferently, like just like
Mm.
an old friend that they just hadn't seen in a long time. Like
Right.
um so like in a way it's good and it's imaginative, but like the overall story in terms of who goes where and what are these various gods doing who are pulling the strings, like that part I really enjoyed.
Mm.
But the I mean honestly the gameplay is going to carry this game I think for anyone.
Yeah.
uh it is, no one is making games like Ogre Battle, and this is the closest thing we have to a modern day take that just saves you a ton of time. Like, the original Ogre Battle takes forever. You will just spend hours like disassembling your troops and reassembling them.
Yeah, like the quality of life stuff isn't really. I mean, it's so old, of course it isn't, but
Yeah,
like it isn't really there.
it is old, and for some, like so many games, Square's like, no, we're just never gonna
Yeah.
release this thing.
Yeah, we didn't make that. That's somebody else's. It's like, well, no, wait a minute.
Um, anyway, the and I did play through that on the Steam Deck, and it worked great there.
Oh, nice.
By
That
the
seemed
way,
like a great platform for it.
yeah, it's. I hope they bring it to. I hope they bring it to consoles. Honestly,
It seemed like it'd be
um,
a great Switch game.
yeah, I agree, and I don't
Yeah.
see any reason it couldn't run well on Switch. Like you could nitpick like little things in terms of like sometimes the enemy takes a long time to take their turn, but like
Mm.
there's I can't remember what button it is. I feel like it was one of the shoulder buttons. One of them, like I found if I just held it down, the enemy like turns accelerated significantly. So
Okay. Interesting.
um, I just did that the whole time. Like
Right.
towards the end, you'll have like 15 units, which all are comprised of like 7 to 9 troops each, and the
Oh,
enemy will
wow.
have like 30 troops on the field, and um, so there's a lot kind of management there, but I guess that's another minor criticism. If you're looking for a really hard game, this is not it. This is
Oh, okay.
I kind of coasted through it on normal. So if you're looking for a challenge, maybe up the difficulty and see how that does.
Right.
Moving on, because I knew Tactics Ogre was coming out, I started playing Skyrim in the interim.
Oh, okay.
Just kind of taking my my dark elf mage through things. Didn't really discover a whole lot of new stuff. I added another a mod or two for some extra houses, and I have the Sophia mod on, which gives you like a sidekick who's kind of dirty mouthed and has way too much style. Like I appreciate that they put in a metric ton of work. I imagine this had to have taken them a year or two to do.
Yeah.
Like probably a year in just recording the dialogue alone. There's too much of it. She needs to talk.
It's a fine line of like a party member, especially, just being too chatty.
Yeah. I need to go find another follower. Every time I run into like someone who could be a potential follower, I'm like, I really don't want to do that side quest for the umpteenth time.
Right. That's another mod of just complete it for me. I
Yeah.
don't need to do it again.
Oh, that's a good point. I bet
Yeah.
that exists.
Yep.
Anyway, so and then kind of yesterday and today, I've probably gamed more than I have in a couple weeks, and that Tactics Ogre came out.
Yeah.
And Shadows Over Loathing came out, which I didn't even know was a thing until it posted. But I'll one at a time.
Okay.
So I started Tactics Ogre yesterday, playing that on Steam Deck too.
And this is the full title of this is Tactics Ogre Reborn, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So I will talk about this better in January when we get to it. But they've effectively taken the PSP version and added more quality of life version stuff to it.
Right. That PSP version was real good.
Yeah. And it's my understanding is like for longtime listeners, you may remember I could not get the Witch and Necromancer they added because it turned out one of the factions I decided to do my grinding against. Like you couldn't have a negative reputation with that faction and recruit them. And
right.
I was negative like 1,000 points, and it was going to take me like 30 or 40 hours to reverse that.
Right.
My understanding is some of that's removed. They've added the training battles back that the original PS1 version had.
Nice.
It doesn't appear to be like your guys against your guys, I guess, like the PS1 was, but it's still pretty cool. And it still has like the character art in those games is just amazing.
It's so good.
It's gosh. They added voice acting, which I was not expecting.
Yeah, I saw a recent video of that. I joked on TVGP that they brought out the British voice actors for this one, which means Square means business.
It's funny because I was hanging out with some friends when I started the game, and I just had it lightly on, and it started talking. I'm like, well, crap! Now I don't want to play this around you guys. I want to hear how the voice acting is.
Yeah, exactly.
I also forgot. So, like in the original Ogre Battle, for those that haven't played it, like as you go through different areas, like it's like it's like an RTS, but it's turn-based. Well, no, It's not like an RTS. I don't know how to describe it. You get like a big world map, and you have your troops with your 3 to 5 characters in it, and you go around conquering cities that give you money, and sometimes the cities will have troops you can get. And the game had like I think it had like 3 endings, but because of all the variables to the endings, it actually had like 26 or 30 endings or something ridiculous. And they do a thing at the end of the first game where it's like the thing they do in movies where like, here's the title card for this character, and they went off to do this and that.
Right.
So half of the characters you get in Ogre Battle are in Tactics Ogre, and the other half are in March of the Black Queen for Nintendo 64.
Oh,
Um,
gotcha. Okay.
and I always thought that was a really cool, like, you're taking this game that did have some story and did have some interesting kind of story stuff they did, and recontextualizing so much of it with a game that is extremely story driven.
Right.
Which playing this too, now that, like, last time I played this, like, Game of Thrones hadn't, the TV show had not come out. I had not read the books.
Right.
This game is Game of Thrones. Like,
Yeah.
it is houses and betrayals and, like,
Political machinations.
yes, so many
Yeah.
political machinations. Like, you start out and you're some kids who are mad against I forget what they're called, the Empire, and these guys are
Yep.
showing up, and you think they're the bad guys, and you attack them, and they're like, you can't do anything to them because you're kids, and they're like, we don't understand why you're doing this. You're like, this dark knight named Lancelot, like, did this thing, and he's like, yeah, that's not me. And they're
Right.
like, well, you do have two eyes, and he only had one eye, so
Right. Right.
we'll believe you. It's I have also forgotten how, like, I always think of this game as being Final Fantasy Tactics mechanically,
Hmm.
and it kind of is, but Final Fantasy Tactics, you get a character, you choose, like, you have your little ring to choose 20 classes, and
Yeah.
you equip a skill. And this one is like, no, you need to get an item called class marks to change classes.
Oh, right.
You have a character level, and then what the class lets you do is you have skills in there that have, like, an experience bar, and you have to level those up to transfer
Right.
them around.
Like a Final Fantasy 9 kind of learning skills thing.
It's been so long since I played 9, so I'll take
Yeah,
your
Final
word for
Fantasy
it.
9 had like your weapons and equipment had skills on them, and you had to use those for long enough to like learn the skill that you could, I guess, kind of like equip it to your character permanently, if I remember correctly, something like that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
I'm not far enough in the game to know that yet, because I forgot how long the freaking intro was.
Yeah.
But it's gosh, if you want a freaking in-depth tactics RPG, man, you should pick up Tactics Ogre Reborn. It's definitely a wonderful version of the game. So
Yeah,
I
I
will.
was talking about it on TVGP that like if you have ever been interested in kind of the grid-based, turn-based SRPGs, this and Final Fantasy Tactics are like the two best ones. And there are other ones that are really great too, but I think the ease of play and the depth for both of these are kind of what really does it for me, especially with Tactics Ogre Reborn's kind of improvements in quality of life stuff. I think that makes it, not that Final Fantasy Tactics is long in the tooth yet, but I think you could look at that game and sort of say like, well, we can make some of this stuff easier. Maybe we can make some of this stuff a little smoother. And I think that's what they did here with Tactics Ogre. It's just kind of like, what if we kind of smooth the rough edges here off of a game that's great, but even the PSP version was a little bit not difficult to play, but it was sort of like, yeah, this is a little weird. This is a little old.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And since, gosh, I don't know. I wish they would re-release Final Fantasy Tactics.
It's another one of those like no-brainers where it's like if you just put this on all consoles and especially Switch, but since it's Square, I want to say not just Switch. It seems like one of those games that just sells. It's like Skyrim. You put Final Fantasy Tactics on every new platform that comes out, and it just sells. Like it's a guaranteed. Like, well, I bought a PS5. Let's get Final Fantasy Tactics on here. All right, let's do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, at least they put Tactics Ogre on freaking everything instead of
Yep.
just a niche handheld.
Yeah. 100%.
Let's see. What else have I been? Oh, right. And then, so, like, last night was Tactics Ogre, and then today was Shadows Over Loathing.
Okay.
And I really wanted to dig into Shadows Over Loathing, to see the differences. So Shadows Over Loathing is in the new game by the West of Loathing guys.
Yep.
This one is Lovecraftian humor.
Okay.
And it's honestly, it's kind of the same game in a lot of ways, mechanically.
Okay.
They added like you now have like a side quest log, thankfully.
Oh, nice. That's
There,
a big improvement.
yeah, like there's some basic like quality of life things that West of Loathing was missing, but it was so charming and not particularly challenging. It wasn't that big a deal.
Yep.
The whenever you lose a battle, I can't remember what West of Loathing did, but on this one you just kind of like there's no real penalty other than that you didn't win the battle. You just gotta
Just
keep
try
fighting
again
until you get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes place in kind of a 1920s era type deal. Lots of speakeasy and oh gosh, what was the female movement back then? It was
Suffrage.
the what?
Women's suffrage.
Well, so suffrage, but the were they called bloomers? There was I'm not gonna remember. There's like a fashion like
Oh, okay. Like flappers?
flappers, yes.
Okay.
There are flapper jokes in there.
Oh, okay.
Your class choices this around are cheese wizard, pig skinner, or jazz agent.
Okay.
I really went in thinking, oh, this is going to be a Lovecraftian adventure. I want to be like the magical detective guy.
Right.
But then they said jazz agent. I'm like, I have to be a jazz agent.
I have to pick that one.
I mean, like one of the first skills I got is called oh, why didn't I write it down? I think it's called like Sax of Torment or something like that. And like you have this jazz music playing in the background, so then a saxophone thing just starts playing and it deals like 1 damage to everyone each turn. It's if you want another one of those games, this is another one of those games, and it's a lot of fun. It's like $20. Like I've been learning a hobo language. Like whenever you see a homeless person, if you give them money, they will show up at a homeless person camp, which is a couple train cars, and there's like one of the train cars is a bar, except it says BYOG, bring your own grub. They just have a guy playing piano. I haven't gotten to the big map in the game yet. I have gotten out of the tutorial area.
Oh, okay.
Like I probably put 4 or 5 hours into it today.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah.
I hope it's not. I think one of the things that we kind of appreciated the most about the first game, West of Loathing, for anyone that didn't play it, it never really felt like it overstayed its welcome. Like that game was, I mean, you could probably play that game for a super long time. I think we got in and out of it in like 10, 15 hours. And I wasn't ready to be done, but I was like, all right, that was pretty good. So I'm hoping this game isn't going to be like, it's 45 hours. Like, that's probably too much.
Oof. Yeah, that would be too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really hope not.
Yeah.
Which I was trying to remember, like the structure of West of Loathing, because I think you went to a training city, and then you went to a slightly bigger map area, and then they gave you like the full map.
I think so, yeah.
And right now I'm in that mid section. I'm a little bit worried about how big the full map is going to be, but
yeah.
The map is just like one giant city, so you're just kind of going to different neighborhoods or sections of the city.
Okay.
Is how they did that. But for the most part, it translates pretty well. I haven't seen, like, there was a bunch of kind of silly horror, okay. In West of Loathing, they had the that one checkbox and options to see the weird West stuff.
Yeah.
And this one they have haunted.
Okay.
And like you click it, and then they have another haunted option. I've been afraid to click the second haunted option, but
yeah, knowing this game, I'm not entirely sure what that's gonna do.
It
might like put it in color or something.
Yeah. I've really only encountered one thing, which is in the intro area, and like part of me wants to spoil it, but I probably shouldn't.
Mm.
It's nothing about the game is scary so far.
Oh, sure,
They
yeah.
just have fun with some of those tropes.
Right.
But and the other thing I found is like West of Loathing, you would have certain things that would just give you 3 tries, and then you were locked out of that content.
Oh, right,
Um,
right.
I don't think that is the case here.
That would be nice.
Yeah, it is. Like I guess there was one. Like I had to solve a whodunit thing in this woman's. Uh, I don't know. It's a house for salesmen. Like she only lets salesmen rent from her, and you have to solve
Okay.
who murdered this person. And I solved it, but there was an option at the end. I kind of wish I chose a different one. Like I suspect on that one, if you choose the wrong one, it will still keep going.
Oh, sure.
You just may not get something during it, but
Yeah, that would be nice, because I think that was one of my big frustrations of the first one is, and I know the first one was so short because they wanted you to play it multiple times, where it's like, oh, you ran into this thing, but because you weren't this class at this level, you can't do anything with this. And it's like, okay, cool. Or like, your skill in this class isn't high enough, so you tried and you tried and you failed, and now you're locked out. And it's like, all right, okay, that's not super great.
yeah, yeah. And I don't. This one seems to have more of a story than the last one too.
Mm.
In that you have been given a letter from your uncle or something like that. And you get there and he's disappeared, and it turns out he was associated with this antique store where they're going after like haunted artifacts. So you're generally just searching for haunted artifacts, but you're also searching for your uncle, which I guess isn't too much different from searching for that one guy who declared himself king or whatever it
Oh
was.
yeah, yeah. I
I
don't
get him
remember
and
his
the
name.
necromancer confused in the West of
Right.
Loathing, but the combat is harder.
Oh, okay.
Which at first I like, because there's no real penalty for losing combat, it didn't bug me. It just becomes kind of a weird like arithmetic equation. Like
Okay.
you're like, okay, this guy is gonna hit me for X amount, and I have a familiar who, like, you start
Mm.
out with a familiar that's like a crow, and I got a turtle now. I named him
Mm.
Leonardo. Um,
Nice.
but like it's interesting in that it makes you use your items and skills and kind of think about that stuff quite a bit more than West of Loathing did. Um, we'll see
Yeah.
how hard it gets. Like they could probably go a little bit wrong with that, but so far it's been good, and it's kind of rewarding when you kind of figure out one of those puzzles.
Right.
Because I guess that is effectively what it does, is it makes combat feel a little bit more like a puzzle than it did before.
Yeah, because I think as much as I really kind of respected the first game for being kind of an easier experience, I don't think I would mind if it was like just a smidge harder. I think that made the first one easy to recommend. Was like, look, it's this cool like black and white stick figure comedy Western RPG, and like if you don't play RPGs, that's fine. It's not super difficult. Um, but it's kind of nice to hear that it's just like a little bit harder.
Yeah. So it's probably about all I got to say about that right now, and that is all I have been playing. So
Okay. Let me pull up videos here. Um, I am not going to spoil anything here, but I have started God of War Ragnarok. Um, I just want to mention this because I'm not entirely sure yet how much of an RPG it is. Um, it feels like in this one they introduce a lot more of the like loot and weapon crafting stuff much earlier, which I appreciate. So you're like putting pieces of armor on, you're slotting runes into your weapon, which kind of change your skills. Um, they have a new the axe you have. They now have a new ability where you hold triangle. I think it is. I've only played like maybe 2.5 or 3 hours. You hold triangle and it gets covered with frost. And when you throw that at enemies, it like explodes into this frost sort of small explosion.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
it I am running the PS5 version. I am incredibly impressed at the beginning. So Sony Santa Monica put out this big chart a little bit ago about like all the graphical modes between the two versions, the PS5 and the PS4. And I have an LG CX for my TV or C10. I never know. But when I fired the game up, people might not know this, but on the PS5, you can go in the OS and configure like, do you want to prioritize gameplay or sorry, graphics or frame rate? So I have in the OS, I say, hey, I prefer frame rate over graphics. So each game that I fire up that has that option, it already has that configured, which is great. But because it had noticed I have VRR enabled on my TV, it also enabled me to do high frame rates. So I'm playing this at what appears to be 1440p upscaled to 4K at 120 frames per second, and the frame rate has not dropped at all the entire time,
Wow.
which is wild coming out of a console. So I have been very happy with that. But so far, in the first couple of hours, I've made it through the kind of tutorial area. Now Kratos and Atreus kind of, it seems like they have gotten their objective, like the overall game objective of here's what we're going to go do. And had a really great boss fight. Met a bunch of new characters, all of whom are really great. And it seems like it's been a little bit of time since the first game. And in kind of an exciting way, like Atreus is way older in this one and way more capable, which is kind of fun. But I'm curious how much of an RPG this is going to be. I think we see in a lot of action games like this that have RPG elements. I think when a second one comes out, we usually see them leaning more into, customizing your gear and having a skill tree, and there's like multiple skill trees for your characters this time, and it seems like it's rewarding you more for buy a skill and then use it to be able to buy the next skill. So it's not really just like buy this. Some of them seem like buy this thing and do it, but it's nice to see it's like buy the skill and go use it a bunch of times to kind of make it stronger and then be able to unlock the next one, which is good. But again, super early and it just came out, so I don't really want to spoil anything. I mean, the stuff I just showed here on the video version is like literally the first 4 minutes, so it's not even really anything too crazy. But so far so good. I would be playing more of it, but my entire family has been sick, so my kid has been home, and that is like she's sick. So like that is very much not a game for a 6-year-old in
Yeah.
like every possible way. But so far so good. Really enjoying it, and I'm really looking to dive into it as much as possible here. Only other game I've been playing is like also not an RPG, but we talk about kind of like visual novel-y, adventure-y game sort of things here pretty often. So I've been playing some of We Are OFK. That's the starting a band behind the music, multiple episoded visual novel adventure game sort of thing. If you have played Life is Strange, it's kind of the same vibe and kind of setup I guess. This doesn't have any of Life is Strange's kind of wandering around, walking, interacting things. It's more focused on um, just telling its story. So it's kind of more like a visual novel than anything else. Um, One of the things I really appreciate about this game is that I'm playing it now where all 5 episodes are out, and when you're looking at the main menu, each one of the episodes has a time underneath it for estimated completion. So it's really nice to say, like, here's episode 1, it's going to take you about 45 minutes. Here's episode 2, it's going to take you about 55 minutes. It's like, fantastic. I know I can squeeze an hour in right now. I can go do one of these episodes and not worry about, like, boy, I got somewhere to be. Like, when's this thing wrapping up here, guys? So really appreciate that. I wish more kind of adventure or narrative games would do that. But so far, the first 2 episodes are really great. I think if you are, my only caution here is people are kind of babies about this. If you are sensitive to how people talk in the real world, much like how people were babies about Life is Strange, that is in full effect here because they are like modern, actual people. So if you're kind of a baby about that, then maybe skip out on this. There's a lot of texting that happens. It's probably one of the few games I've played in recent memory that I have genuinely laughed out loud at, which is really welcome. But largely the story so far has been all these people are friends in LA and they're all kind of around the music industry, and through a kind of series of happy accidents, they are connected to a very famous electronic music producer. And it seems like most of the episodes are going to be, all right, through a series of happenstance, we're all going to kind of be in this musical biz together. One of the things I like the most about it, though, is, and I didn't know this going in, is that each episode has a music video in it, but you're playing the music video. So like you're seeing these kind of cool visuals and you're seeing these otherworldly things that are happening, and it's all kind of synced to the music and synced to the lyrics. But you're playing, like you're wandering around, a rainy street, bumping into characters that look exactly like you and like swapping with their bodies, or you're flying around the rings of Saturn and you're shooting down a bunch of asteroids that are getting in your way. And all that stuff is synced to one of the songs that one of the characters in the game is writing and performing. And it's kind of complementing the stuff that's happening in the game and the visuals. So that's been kind of a pleasant surprise that I like visual novels a lot. We've talked about them on the show over the years because I feel like nowhere talks about visual novels ever. But it's kind of neat to see someone making kind of a visual novel adventure thing that has something a little bit extra to it. So We Are OFK seems really great so far. I know it came out this year. I'm hoping that I can wrap this up before the end of the year to see if it'll make my top 10. But seems like it's a shoo-in at this point. I kind of really like everything that is going on there. I don't remember how much it costs though. I think it's only like $15-$20, something like that. It's pretty reasonable. But We Are OFK. I didn't really play any like RPGs because I haven't had a chance to buy Tactics Ogre Reborn yet. I'm very tickled that there's a PS5 version of Tactics Ogre, which I think is. I always really appreciate when it's just like, here's this old 2D game. It's got a PS5 box. It's like, yeah, man, that's great. So that's all I'm playing this month. Let's scooch on over to releases here. We're going to do releases for the next 2 months, though, because we're going to have a little bit of a different episode going on for next month. So So coming out in November, Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana comes out on the PS5 on the 15th. I think this is the last platform this is coming out on. It seems like it's out on everything else at this point. I haven't played this. The Nimp over on TVGP really loves the Ys series. I remember him saying that this is good, and everyone that likes Ys says this is a really good one. So,
yeah, this is the one I played the most of.
Okay.
And I don't think I beat it because I was getting really fed up with the Switch version.
Sure.
Which is it is a very significant downgrade. So only buy like the Xbox or PS versions of this game.
Is it something to play on your Steam Deck, maybe if you got one of those?
That'd probably work well. Yeah. But this is you're trapped on an island, and like a lot of the island blockades are like you need to find X amount of survivors to get past this thing, and you're kind of
and like build your town up.
And that part of the game is fantastic.
Yeah. That's part of the reason why I've been interested in it.
Yeah. I don't remember the part that put me off, and I'm sure I was overreacting at the time.
Well, knowing JRPGs, it's probably like some foggy forest that's a maze where every time you go out and exit, it leaves you somewhere else that you don't know, and it probably ran like crap on the Switch.
I don't think they had it. I think it was like a boss battle that really irritated me. And once I got past the boss battle, it was not the end boss, and I really didn't want to go back.
Right.
But it doesn't matter. I spent like probably 40 to 60 hours in that game. Like,
yeah,
I had a wonderful time for the majority of that playthrough. So
yeah. Next up, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet come out on the Switch on the 18th. You know what? I forgot an RPG I've actually been playing is Pokemon Sword. My daughter is like way into Pokemon right now. And I didn't really like Pokemon Arceus. I didn't like the wander around the open world map and throwing the Pokeballs at Pokemon. Like that's not the experience I'm looking for. And we had seen something about like the new Pokemon game coming out, and she's like, "Daddy, you should buy this new one." I'm like, I don't know, man. I didn't like Arceus, but I remembered, oh yeah, I got Sword installed on my Switch, and that's kind of the traditional Pokemon. So we've been playing like a little bit of that every day for as long as she can kind of pay attention to it, and we're using it to help her with her reading. She's learning how to read, and we've made it. I think like we just got the Pokedex after like 3 or 4 days, so I think we made it like maybe 2 hours. But one of her favorite things about Pokemon is seeing all of the Pokemon and like learning what their names are and figuring out what kind of type they are. For some reason she's really into like, ooh, that one's a dark flying type. And I'm like, oh, all right, okay. So we've been playing that. She's upset we haven't seen Pikachu yet because that's her favorite, and I don't know where to find Pikachu in Pokemon Sword yet. I'll have to go look that up. But so far her favorite Pokemon is Wooloo, the sheep Pokemon, because it's the cutest. So I can't believe I forgot to write that down. But we've been playing a bunch of that, and we're having a good time with that.
Nice.
I haven't seen that much about Scarlet and Violet because the ROMs got out there like a week ago or so. So everybody has been like streaming and spoiling everything. Not that I care too much about spoilers, but I don't. One of those things where it's like, how am I going to look at something about this game without someone being like, this dude dies halfway through, something like that. So I'm not sure. Yeah. Next up is Front Mission First Remake comes out on the Switch on the 30th. Man, I'm super pumped about this. I hope this runs well because this first Front Mission game is really great, and I think this is the first time it's coming to the West, right? Officially?
So it did come out on DS, and that was
okay.
I've tried that version multiple times, and I always get super excited when I try it. And usually they immediately give you access to an arena, and
Right.
I'm always like, I'm just going to grind out in the arena.
Yep.
But the other thing I discovered the last time I tried to play through it is all the attacks are like the damage you do is randomized to a like 0 to like a high. I don't remember what the damage range is, but the
Right.
point being is like you could easily spend a turn doing like 1 damage or something when you were
Or
hoping
like
to do like,
actually 0 damage.
yeah, like it is randomized to fault, unfortunately. So I'm hoping they make that part better, but I will be picking it up.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised because Nintendo has been pushing this fairly hard on every direct, but I feel like I know very little about this game actually. Like, I feel like they did a really good job with Tactics Ogre Reborn of saying, like, here are the things that are different. Here are the things we brought back. Here are the brand new things. Like, it's very clear about here are the improvements. And in this one, it's sort of like, yeah, you guys probably never played this, so it's coming out on Switch. It's like, oh, I mean, it looks great, but are there any of those quality of life improvements that we really sort of hope for? So we'll see. Next up is a game I'm very curious to see what this is actually going to be in the final version. Marvel's Midnight Suns comes out PS5, Series consoles, and PC on the December 2nd. So we're now in December. This is the XCOM team's Marvel turn-based strategy RPG card game,
Yeah.
which still seems like a super wild plan. But if there's a team that I think has figured out how to do kind of the non Tactics Ogre and Final Fantasy Tactics type of strategy thing, like the more Shadowrun kind of style, I feel like that team deserves a lot of optimism, I think.
Yeah. I'm
So
I'm waiting for the reviews on this one, but
yeah.
I got a lot of like non-gaming projects are going to wrap up like the first week of December. So
Uh-huh.
I'm hoping I can just play a ton of games in
Right.
December. We'll see. I don't know.
Right.
This one has magic in it. I like playing games with magic in it.
Okay.
Colossus's sister, for
Right.
those not in the know.
Right. Well, and it's interesting too because Marvel Snap has been a real runaway hit since it went sort of out of beta and public here. So it feels like a really great time for another card-based Marvel thing to kind of land, and maybe this is a really good. I'm hoping this is a really good game to get people into this style of strategy games. And if not, Marvel Snap is still really good. Next game here is Dragon Quest Treasures, comes out on Switch on the 9th. This is another one where Square has really been pushing this game super hard, and I have absolutely zero idea what this game really is. It seems like it's kind of like a not a more casual kind of Dragon Quest adventure-y sort of thing, but it doesn't look like it's going as in depth as the mainline series, but they're really pushing this thing pretty hard in kind of an impressive way. But this is another game I'm definitely, if they put out the next Dragon Quest game, was that going to be Dragon Quest 13? I will pick that up day one, but a lot of the spin-offs for me have been pretty hit or miss, so I'm curious to see the reviews on this one. Next game here, Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion comes out PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series consoles, Switch, and PC on December 13th. I really loved Crisis Core on the PSP. It is a really weird beast. And if you have played Final Fantasy VII, you know that the story in this game is like a slow motion train crash. And I remember really liking the combination of kind of like a mission-based structure, because it was on the PSP. It had like smaller bite-sized missions that weren't super duper long, but it had hundreds of them, combining with that kind of fun slot machine thing that the game did. I feel like a lot of people forget. And it looks like they brought all that stuff over. And now it has full voice acting, and it looks really good. I'm baffled that they're bringing this over, but it looks like they're kind of doing this game right. Did you ever play Crisis Core?
I did. I never beat it. I remember liking it, but it was, gosh, it was so freaking long ago.
There was a lot in that game too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Zack is such an upbeat character compared to Cloud.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And our last release here, Valkyrie Profile Lenneth, comes out PS4 and PS5 on December 22nd. This is their not really remake, not really remaster of the first Valkyrie Profile game. If you haven't played this game before and you would like to do so, number one, I would recommend it. It's kind of a great... I don't know if I've played another game that is like this. It's a very strange thing. Please play it with a guide. It is obtuse on how to, I guess, continue to keep that game moving forward. Nevertheless, kind of get any ending that isn't bad. So it's not super long if you want to just kind of like dive in there with both feet and try. Because when the game kind of ends, it's like essentially when Ragnarok happens, you can start the game back over, or you can kind of start it before kind of a big decision path. But if you kind of want to play it in the most efficient way possible, then please look up a guide. We only have one news story this month, and it's kind of interesting. CD Projekt Red has announced that the original Witcher is getting an Unreal Engine 5 remake, not a remaster. CD Projekt Red describes the remake themselves as a modern reimagining of the original game, which you played the original Witcher too, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's basically my reaction to is like, look, if there's ever a game that needs to be like recreated from the ground up, it's that first Witcher game. That's I know.
Go
ahead.
I just yeah, but you can't comment on the first Witcher game without bringing up the rampant like collecting cards for the women you've slept with, like horribleness of it, like
right. Yeah,
there's
a lot of it that's kind of, to put it mildly, in poor taste. But also like just from like a gameplay perspective, it's super rough. You could kind of see them improving every time. Like Witcher 2 is way better. Witcher 3, I think, is such a fantastic RPG. But like the first game of really requiring you to like meditate and make all your potions and do the investigation, and then doing that almost rhythm game of the left mouse button and right mouse button to actually not swing your sword, because like if you didn't time it right, Geralt just like wouldn't do anything. From a gameplay perspective, really rough. So it's one of those, like, if you take the story and all of that world building they were trying to do in that first one, and you kind of make it more like Witcher 3 or make it like the new Witcher game, you're going to be in a much better spot. And they announced that this is being handled by the studio Fool's Theory. They helped out with Outriders, Baldur's Gate 3, and Divinity Original Sin 2. So they were kind of like an assist team on a lot of genuinely really good RPGs. And additionally, they're using the same tools that CD Projekt Red is using for the next trilogy of Witcher games, which from a development standpoint is probably good. Where it's like, hey, are you guys? I think these tools are in good shape. Why don't you guys go and try and ship something? Let's see how this thing turns out, and why not kind of remake the original Witcher from the ground up? So hopefully this turns out well, because I think my recommendation for the first Witcher game is like you should probably like read a summary about it, maybe watch some videos or something, but really don't play it. If you're going to play, if you want to play all of them, start with 2. If not, just start with 3 because it's really great. But it'll be nice to have a more solid version of the first game.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
like if they can, I've only played a little bit of 3, but if they can bring that level of level design to Witcher 1, then they probably have something. But that seems like that is a long game. Like that is
that's a task.
Yeah, like and it is. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure you're like us in that you have to do most of the side quests. Like it is very difficult to ignore them, and so you're going to be in that first Witcher 1 with its horrible gameplay. Like it's basically like a rhythm game, right? Like because you have to hit at certain swings. Gosh, that game was like that took me years to get through this.
Yeah, it's it's a lot. Anyway. Yeah. So hopefully it turns out okay. Yeah, absolutely. All right, that's all of our news stories for this month, and that's actually our episode for this month. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. If you'd like to visit us, you can do so at pickingupthepixels.com. Everywhere to find and follow us is on the right-hand side of the page, including links to our Patreon page, patreon.com/E1M1. The ones are numbers. And support us financially over there, and you get a bunch of cool behind-the-scenes early access audio for a bunch of different shows kind of across the entire network. If you can't support us financially, totally understand. The best way to support these shows or anything you listen to or like or watch or anything that people create, best way to show support is by sharing it, telling your friends. Word of mouth is a huge help for any of this stuff. So that's a big way to help anything that you like watching or reading or listening to or anything you enjoy. Musim, where can we find you online?
I made a link tree.
Hey, nice.
So you can find me at linktr.ee/John Musim. Nice. And that'll have all my music stuff and social media and whatever. Anything you could want.
All the good stuff, yeah.
And my dog, most importantly.
There you go. I don't even remember where my... I used to use Linktree and I switched over to something else. I use campsite.bio/Janston, if you want to see all of my links. I have a lot of them on there. You can check that out for all my personal stuff, and you can check out e1m1.com for all of the podcasts on this network. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you all next month. Bye.
Bye.